The top 10, let's
Top
go.
10,
The
yeah.
top 10 myths about us.
We don't have any political future.
What we are actually is a group of bandits and offenders and
Hooligans. We are considering everyone as a moron except us. We are getting financial support from Robert Kocharyan, Serge Sargsyan, Sashik, Russians.
The truth about me being a member or supporting a civil contract political party, it's not a myth. I did support them.
We are either neo-Nazis or fascists. I would like to announce for this government that, guys, you have already lost the fight.
Хули что делать, если победа сердца над разумом и все надоело среди туземцев быть пасынком. Позади райну расовые, камикадзе мы, впереди мир камер газовых, армии Власова, казни массовых, но все же тянет нас.
Greetings to all of the ADEKVADs. We are happy to announce a new program. Today we are going to speak about 10 myths and big lies that our government invented specially for us and about us. I and Artur will speak about each one of them. Of course, not all of them, but 10 most widely spread myths.
The top 10, let's
Top
go.
10,
The
yeah.
top 10 myths about us. This is our first episode about the top 10 media manipulations and myths associated with us. It's most probably not going to be the last one, but well, this is the top 10 that we've compiled for you. And the first and probably the most heavily advanced or the most populated, should I say,
Cultivated.
cultivated and commercialized myth, or it's not really a myth. It's mostly true, however, very manipulated truth. The truth about me being a member or supporting a civil contract political party. It's not a myth. I did support them. In 2015, when I met Nicole Pashinyan, I was very surprised to hear about his ideas. It felt a lot like he was reading my mind, talking about creating an institutional political party that would have a shadow government, a political program, and an institutional force behind it, so that when the power is shifted, when the power comes into their hands, they will be able to actually do something good for the country. What he said was that taking power in the country is not a prerogative, it's not a priority. Good reforms towards better life for our citizens was a priority, and I tended to believe him. Maybe mostly because of his rhetoric capacity and capabilities. However, and also one of the main points why I sort of liked what he was saying was that he would always mention the fact that he would do everything possible to get rid of this phenomenon, this Armenian phenomenon, when political parties tend to create personality cults. He brought the example of Levon Ter-Petrosyan and their party, and the fact that their movement was destroyed by the cult of Levon Ter-Petrosyan, cultivated mainly by himself. I started to help them. I started to assist them both financially and intellectually. I worked alongside his team members on developing a strategy for that party, and the main basically points of that strategy was just like I said, having a shadow government, a program, and an institutional political party that would be able to realize those programs and reforms. However, during that year that I was supporting that political party, it became evident for me that if actually content-based politics becomes a reality in Armenia, people like Nikol Pashinyan would be ousted from the political arena. And the reason why he sort of made sure that this strategy of theirs doesn't come into reality led me to think that there is nothing to do in that political party for me. As just like I said, Nikol realized that if he has a shadow government, if he has a shadow program, he would have to go into content, into academics of politics, economics, social issue, education, security and such. And if he does that, he's going to be ousted by people who actually have something to contribute other than good speeches and toasts. My stepping out from that movement, from that political party, was also sold to the public as a reason for not being appointed on a position. However, I left that party in 2016, and I've never been a member actually of the party. And in 2016, I should remind you that there was absolutely no prospect of any success in Armenia for that political party. I did, following requests from my friends in that party, I did send, what do you call it?
Application.
An application, yeah. I did apply for membership. The reason for my application was to outline the reasons why I don't want to be a member of that party. It sounds like an oxymoron, but that's what it actually was. My application, instead of being just one sheet of paper with my personal data on it, consisted of 5 or 6 lists, I think. Most probably I will publicize that application sometime in the future. It was more of, it wasn't an application, it was more of a manifesto against everything that Nikol stood and for everything that Nikol said he would stand. So it wasn't a surprise for anyone, for everyone in that party and for me, that Nikol decided that that application should be denied. That was the purpose of that application. Also, following this myth, I would like to talk about the next manipulation on our list regarding my citizenship. Nowadays, state propagandists claim or try to claim that I, alongside my friends in ADEKVAD, alongside Konstantin, am an agent of influence in Armenia, and they hint that we're being agents, working as agents for the Russian Federation. They're not stating it clearly because they pretend to be in good working relationship with Russian Federation.
Relationship.
This Russophobia is very latent. However, that's what they hint, and usually they outline the fact that I have a dual citizenship as a fact supporting me being an agent. I do have a dual citizenship. In fact, I was an ex-diasporan. I returned to Armenia in 2008. We've moved here with my family. In 2009, I started to learn how to write and speak in Armenian. Many people don't believe this because they don't feel the accent when I speak in Armenian. However, it's true. I actually started to write in 2009 when I was 24 years old. I applied for an Armenian citizenship after the April War of 2016 in Artsakh. The reason for that was that I actually went to Artsakh. I was there on April 2nd. I signed up for a group of volunteers. They volunteered to help in any way possible. And while signing up, while filling the application, a thought just hit me that what if I was required to give them my passport details, and it would be evident that I'm not an Armenian citizen. Basically, regardless of my ethnicity, regardless of my last name, I was still a Russian citizen, and basically a Russian citizen signing up to fight a war between two foreign states. I could just as well go to Syria and look for a group to fight for them. Legally speaking, this was the case. That was my only and biggest probably motivation to become an Armenian citizen, so that if this country, if my homeland needs me, at least legally speaking, I would have the right to assist in any way possible. Me being an agent, or us being an agent, has absolutely no factual ground under that statement. Moreover, if there was actually anything factual that the state could present, believe you me, those facts will be presented immediately, minutes after they receive it. Also, one of the reasons that we're being blamed for being agents is the fact that it is becoming more and more evident for our society that people who came to power in Armenia came to power through a coup d'etat, largely sponsored and financed by foreign agents in Armenia. Basically, Nikol Pashinyan is blaming us for being what he actually is. And this is not the first instance he's done that. This is very typical for him. He blames people of Artsakh, or the political and military leaders of Artsakh in trying to provoke a war, yeah, and give away land, even though he's the one who's been following the ideas of Levon and Petrosyan, which state that we would live happily ever after if we didn't have Artsakh as a problem. Coming back to the main thesis of this myth, no, we're not agents, and there's absolutely nothing that could prove that. And if there was actually anything that could prove that, that would be presented to you immediately. The absurdity of this myth is also outlined by the fact that there's probably hundreds of thousands of our compatriots who have dual citizenship. Most of the people who work in Russian Federation, and a lot of our compatriots in the United States have dual citizenship, but that doesn't mean they're foreign agents. That doesn't mean they're agents of influence.
One of the latest myths invented by state propaganda about us is that we are either neo-Nazis or fascists. What can I say about this? Please look at my face. Do I look like a Nazi?
Or rather, look at my face.
Have you ever seen a Nazi with such a beard? It's absurd and strange thing to say. Of course, we are not Nazis, neo-Nazis or fascists. Then you might have the question. Proper question: why would this government invent such a labeling, come out with such a labeling about us? Mostly, this propaganda, this agenda is aimed for our international partners to scare them away, posing us as radicals and not.
A radical group not to have contact with or any business with.
Yeah, basically it's about discrimination. We are not for xenophobia, we are not racist, we are against any ethnic segregation. Just the opposite. We are for a strong statehood where every citizen counts, despite his nationality, religion, any other division that is typical for Nazism.
This particular thesis about us being fascist is very amusing, since it's being promoted by people who've introduced political racism to Armenia. These people have created the blacks and whites in the political spectrum. These people have divided our people into citizens and non-citizens. They've created even festivals for what they consider to be citizens, and those people who don't agree with them, don't agree with their political agenda, whatever it is, if you can call it an agenda, are not supposed to be citizens. Also interesting is the fact that politically speaking, in terms of political science, fascism and Nazism are usually described by systems who support totalitarianism and cult of personality. Now, people who've created the cult of personality of Nikol Pashinyan, whose portraits are everywhere, from, I don't know, alcoholic beverages to t-shirts and underwear, they blame us for being fascists. People who've created this regime where the word of their leader is a law. People who promote this notion that whatever Nikol says is correct and he cannot be mistaken, blame us for being fascists.
There is a good question. Why should we avoid speaking about our nation, our nationalism, our family, our values in our own country, if we can speak about these kind of values in our home? Where can we speak about them? Is that a fascism to speak about that? No. Why every single person talking about these issues is labeled as a Nazi when he or she is not a Nazi? This is the signature of this government, this political party and Nikol Pashinyan. And who are fascists after all of this? People who threaten their opponents just because they are the political opponents and they don't want, they want to be different from the course of the political party of prime minister. And I'm asking this question: who is the fascist after all of this? And everyone listening to us now should ask that question to himself or herself: who is the fascist after all of this? Other widely spreading myth about us is that we are getting financial support from Robert Kocharyan, Serge Sargsyan, Sashik, Russians, aliens, reptiloids. We have lost the count of our counterparts who supposedly are financing us. In reality, all of us are quite successful men and women who have got their earnings, and it's for most of the time it can be above the average level, and we have enough resources to conduct our actions. After all, it's not a huge deal money-wise to get some paint or paper which we use during our actions. The thing is that you need to have some brains and capability of using them. You need to have creativity and fantasy in order to conduct a good action without having big financial support. And this is something that they lack, because present government in various levels consists of people who either used to be unemployed person, mostly wasting his time in bars, consuming alcohol and not paying for that alcohol. On the other hand, there are a lot of people in this government that years long they were like parasiting on foreign grants, and in order to prove the donors that these grants are needed and they are good professionals, they were imitating stormy activities. Nowadays they have to explain their donors how come that people with probably, let's say, for example, $50, do the same thing with the same, if not more, effectiveness that their people here in Armenia would do only for $50,000 or hundreds or thousand times, for hundreds and more, 1,000 times more value. Here is the hint. When you lack funds, you can go for fundraising, and our followers help us big time in this issue. And they do this not because of totalitarianism or not because they are scared of these neo-Nazis, but because they want to have their heard by our society. We do not consider it inappropriate when our followers support us financially, if they are citizens of Republic of Armenia and if these funds are legal. And on this behalf, we insist our followers to do the donations via banking.
Yeah, well, basically, there's two prerequisites, I guess. First of all, hopefully you're a citizen of Armenia, because as far as I know, if you're a foreign citizen, it's going to be very difficult to transfer funds to an NGO in Armenia. The other prerequisite is that you do it through a bank, which will guarantee that the funds being transferred to us are legal. Basically, it's the bank's duty to check for the legality of these funds, so that we don't have a headache of checking it for ourselves. Also, I would like to say that people, regardless of their political past and future, be it citizen of Armenia, Serge Sargsyan, or another citizen of Armenia, Robert Kocharan, or anyone else, if they want to support us financially, I personally have no problem with that, as long as those funds are legal and as long as those funds are being transferred electronically, not in cash.
But we have to mention that there is one thing, one source of financing that we will never accept. We will never accept foreign financial assistance to serve their agenda that definitely and irreversibly undermines our statehood. And this is something that the way of life of people who nowadays are current officials, and they were living their life like that.
Basically, when I'm being asked why am I doing this, or who is financing what we're doing, our civil acts, this sounds a lot like an insult, because right now Armenia, you have to realize this, Armenia has been occupied. There has been a coup d'etat. This is not a revolution. It has been occupied by foreign agents, and when fighting against foreign agents, we're basically fighting for the liberation of our country, asking us whether we get funds or money for what we're doing is like asking a soldier fighting for his homeland whether he does it for money or not. Now I realize for people who are pushing these manipulations, it's very strange for them to understand that people could not only do this for free, but also donate their own money for these civil acts. Because throughout years, for decades, every single civil act that they've been doing, whether it's for environmental issues, I don't know, preservation of architectural monuments or any other political movements, whatever they have done was done only because it was
key motivation was money.
Heavily financed by foreign foundations and organizations, which is why it's very difficult for them to understand that what we're doing, first of all, requires much less money than what they were getting, and most of the time we're actually donating ourselves and not making any profit out of this.
Watch out, the clue is out there. State propagandists push hard on another myth that we are considering everyone as a moron except us. We might be harsh in when we are assessing things happening around us. Some people may not like the way of communication we prefer between us and our audience. Well, we may not use fancy framing in order not to insult people or make them feel uncomfortable.
Let's just say being politically correct is not our fetish.
Yeah. But yet we believe that that's the only way, that's the only proper way, because who said that the truth is always sweet and tasty? For most of the times, the truth is bitter, bittersweet, I would say. And in order to help people to do some reflection and take responsibility, you need to name things the way they are. See, not most of the people, all of the people tend to do mistakes. What makes a person Homo sapiens is the presence of will, a will to take the responsibility for his actions, even when he or she was misled by the liars and manipulators, and make some outcome of it. That's the highest mission that makes a human being different from an animal.
As you can see, we're also not big animal lovers either. So basically,
we are vegans.
Tomorrow there's going to be another group that is going to blame us for being fascists.
Another 10 myths.
This time it's the animal lovers.
What we say to people that, listen, dude, maybe at some point you were wrong. You need to realize that, accept the fact of that realization, and move on, smart, but being more smart. And
basically, guys, making a mistake is okay, but when you keep trying to avoid accepting the mistake, that most probably means you're an idiot, at least. We of course are sometimes very harsh in our statements. We're not politically correct, and usually when I do it, at least I do it on purpose. For me, it's a strategy, a correctional strategy. I'm trying to make sure that people understand. First of all, whenever they use uncensored, let's just say, figures of speech, it's going to come back to them. They cannot monopolize free speech. They cannot monopolize any speech. So whenever our state officials, for example, insult other citizens, regardless of their political views, they have to realize that those insults are going to be turned against them. And since whatever we do much more effectively than they do, in our insults, we're also going to be much more effective. Moreover, I honestly do hope that this correctional strategy of ours would be limited to their speech. Basically, I hope that we would only have to correct their speech because apart from uncensored speech, they're also very uncensored in their actions. Throughout these years, there have been numerous attacks on political opponents. We have been attacked a couple of times. Of course, the police and the district attorneys didn't react anyhow. There were no criminal charges against anyone, even though it was evident once it was actually broadcasted live. But I honestly do hope that we're not going to have to use this correctional strategy on the streets of Yerevan, basically physically proving that attacking people for their political views is wrong. I really honestly do hope that we would be limited, we can be limited to verbally, orally, educate people that using slurs, using insults is not the right way.
Basically, what we say that every single person living in Armenia, and not only in Armenia, should choose between living in illusions and lies or changing his or her life. And if you choose the second one, you need to understand that at first you need to hear the truth and accept that truth. And on the second stage, you need to speak about this truth and tell this truth to other people. That's the only way it works.
The other media manipulation is regarding us not being adequate. What we're propagating is fake. What we are actually is a group of bandits and offenders and hooligans. Yeah. Well, what can I say about this? Listen, guys. If any of our civic actions, or in any of our actions, be it politically or wherever else or socially, if we ever violated any rule or any law, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor, believe me, we would be arrested and charged in literally a couple of minutes. And we have been actually charged. It's just that we've been charged for expressing our free will and expressing our, exploiting our freedom of speech. I don't talk about this a lot, but we have been subject to administrative fines. There's numerous court cases against us. There's numerous court cases where we're trying to sue, mostly state officials, of course. However, believe me, when they call us hooligans, that's a criminal. Being a hooligan is a criminal offense in Armenia. You could be charged up to 10 years in prison for being taking actions that would be supposed to be hooliganism. If we ever cross the law in those terms, we would be immediately charged and imprisoned. The biggest problem for the government in Armenia right now is the fact that we haven't allowed ourselves yet to cross the law. This is a nerve game where they constantly try to provoke us into breaking the law and hence being charged with a criminal offense. This would solve their political problem that we face.
On the contrary, we are being constantly attacked by criminal elements, and not only criminal elements. The incidents in Maralik and Garni, the groundless police detentions with the use of handcuffs, all of these, like constant hate speech in the social networks, prove that we are not the ones who use all these illegal, semi-legal elements in our political course. It's the government, it's the new Armenia that uses all of these instruments against us. We proved that we are able to stand for ourselves, but we want to assure that we will never attack first, but we will always be able to stand for our security and our
safety,
rights and safety, yes. Another myth about us used by this government is that we have no political agenda, and furthermore, we don't have any political future. It's true that originally our group, our movement was not about politics, or at least it was not a political entity. In the days of April Revolt, there was a small group of people who didn't break against these tremendous waves of hate speech and anger aimed against us. Later on, the ADEKVAD blog or like vlog was created, but after some months a new agenda appeared in Armenia, and it appears that ADEKVAD as a product has got a high value for at least some part of our population, and we decided that why not? Why shouldn't we give this product to the people? And this is how the political entity called ADEKVAD was created.
In fact, we're working right now on institutionalization of our civic movement, and apart from the manifesto that we've published, we're also working on a political program that would be at the foundation of the party that we're also going to create in the coming months. and in this manifesto you can find not only our philosophical views and anthropological maybe even views, but also very concrete points of our agenda regarding fiscal policy, security, foreign agenda, the issue with the demographics in Armenia, economy in general.
Now it's another issue and question: would this government and these authorities want to have opposition consisting of young, successful, and young people with good potential, political potential and professional potential?
Well, that's what you think. You think you have political potential, but they claim that we don't. And this is the rhetoric question that we want to ask. If they don't think we have any political future, if they don't think we have any political agenda, why would they so hard oppose us and fight against us and call on the public to ignore us?
But that's another myth that we are going to speak about. And the another myth is that we don't have any audience, or we lack the audience, and the only proper way for citizens for dealing with us is ignoring us. See, there is this awkward moment that both me and Artur and a lot of our friends integrated in ADEKVAD have been media figures, quite well known, even before the creation of ADEKVAD. So by any mean, we don't like the audience. Probably you always want, as a media figure, to have more contact, a bigger audience, but
well, basically audience is something we've never had a problem with even prior to the
revolution. Yes, so it's absurd to claim that, but more interesting is the claim and campaign of ignoring us.
preaching.
Yeah, because it goes against other myths. If we are that miserable, if we don't represent any value or any risk for this government, then why this government and the officials use all their instruments, all their potential political, financial, criminal against us? You hardly would use that many resources against some entity that the only proper way of dealing with is the ignoring.
Basically, they've used their hooligans, they've used their criminal members of the mafia, let's just say, against us. They're constantly using all of their artillery in terms of propaganda, while, as they say, we have no political future and value. And I would like to actually ask them kindly to practice what they preach. If what they preach is that we should be ignored, then they should practice that. They should set an example, let's just say, for the people and start ignoring us. What they should do is probably stop littering our posts through their fakes, through their fakes and bots, and let them work on something more productive, I don't know, instead of just going into wars on social media.
Of course, it's your right to ignore the reality, but by that fact, the reality doesn't disintegrate. It exists. Anyways, I would like to announce for this government that, guys, you have already lost the fight, because you are not even capable of being tacticians. You don't even know the meaning of the words tactical and strategical. Meanwhile, we are strategists, and on the long run, we are going to succeed, while you are going to fail.
Another very amusing manipulation about us is regarding us being Nico's project. Basically, what they claim is that Nikol is creating an opposition through us.
Fake opposition.
A fake opposition that would easily be dealt with. And the most amusing thing about this is that people who claim so are usually the people who claim that Nikol was the fake opposition of Serge Sargsyan a year ago. Now, of course, there has never been any factual base under the claim that Nikol was Serge's fake opposition, and there is no any factual base to prove that we're Nikol's project. Moreover, logically speaking, since these people are in a dead end politically, and they have been actually in a dead end in 2016 when it was very evident for me, maybe not so evident for the large public. There wouldn't be any logical grounds for us to be in any sort of shadow partnership with Nikol, because
it doesn't have any perspective.
Yeah, well, their political leader and this political team, so-called, doesn't have any political future. So in partnering with them, whether it's official or non-official, we will be doomed for not having a political future ourselves. This claim that we're a fake opposition is partially substantiated by actual fears of this government, fears that they wouldn't have any more monsters to heroically fight against, which is why they're trying to promote our image as the next monster. They're trying to demonize us, and while demonizing us, they're sort of serving to our publicity needs, which has created this myth about us being a fake opposition. Yeah, obviously they do need a monster to heroically fight and win against, so that they have any sort of political dividends. However, this is also ridiculous, because ADEKVAD has grown to be more of a philosophy, a movement, a set
lifestyle.
A set of ideas that has obviously very large demand in Armenia. And even if they demonize us and remove us from the political spectrum or from this life physically, there would be other people who would come up and
take the flag.
Take the flag, yeah, from us, and basically continue promoting adequacy as a lifestyle. Basically, even these tactics are doomed, as ADEKVAD has actually become a movement that has a lot of supporters throughout Armenia. And the fact that we're doing this video in English and Russian also means that it has grown out of Armenian borders and has spread to at least 2 other continents.
And by any mean, in these logics, there is no point of charging you with sentence or even physical liquidation, because liquidation of Artur Danelyan is not going to be liquidation of adequacy in Armenia. Another big lie and manipulation about us is about our controversial relationship with police. The propagandists try to make people believe that if we are taken by police, then there is a reason why we are taken.
Maybe not so evident, but some hidden agenda or hidden files that are being kept secretly, and
a lot of people tend to believe in that, because it's hard for especially a person who is quite loyal to Nikol Pashinyan's regime to believe that this government can just use repressive tools against political opponents. But we assure you that that's the way it works. There is nothing against us, and we assure that if there is a little crime committed by any of us, the state, the country would react immediately and most harsh way, like it happened with other opponents, or not even opponents, but against other people whom Nikol Pashinyan, let's say, doesn't like or hate.
Yeah. Well, this manipulation has actually had its effect on not just Nikol's loyalists, but general citizens of Armenia. And this is partially due to the fact that Nikol looks very trustworthy. This is the key advantage that he has. His rhetoric makes him look trustworthy. I'm telling you this as a person who thought he was trustworthy about 3 years ago.
Yeah, he's the guy next door.
Yeah. The guy next door that has been also always oppressed and fighting the dictatorship and the regime. However, people should realize that when he stands up during rallies and talks to thousands and sometimes even hundreds of thousands of people, he's lying. He's looking into people's eyes and he's lying. And he knows he's lying. Just like he knew that the immigration didn't stop when he was 100 days in office. Just like he knows there is no economic revolution. There is no economic growth in general. He was lying when he was talking about
relationships with Russia, or
brilliant relationships in Russia, or his achievements in foreign agenda, and people who are claiming that there is something behind us, something that would someday come to the view of the large public, they're also lying. When Nikol was talking about what did he call us? Black-shirted
Men in Black
bands, Men in Black, basically. He was also lying. If there was, just like Konstantin said, if there was any microscopic reason for us to be imprisoned, we would have long been imprisoned by now.
Or at least some of us. Anyways, this is some behavior which is typical for Oriental authoritarian regimes. And by saying this, we don't exclude the chance of usage of more repressive tools, both legal and illegal, in the coming future. I would say in coming days.
maybe even hours.
So you need to keep your consciousness aware and not believe that if police take someone, it definitely means that there is something that it's not obvious, at least at this. When it comes to us, there isn't anything that would make us interesting for police. On the matter of fact, I was 32 years old when I first time in my life was taken by police.
And that was like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We realize that every single step we take will be examined very thoroughly, and that even though we have nothing to be afraid of right now, that doesn't mean we won't be charged in the future. Charges could be brought up against us out of just air. However, that's not going to make us stop. Just like I said, even if they liquidate us, this movement is not going to stop. But even having the risk of being physically liquidated, because when the mafia comes into force, there are no rules. We're still going to go ahead and we're still going to try at least to follow our rules. Everything we do should be completely legal and within the spectrum of a proper political and civic process.
And summarizing all that we said, we cannot promise that every single time we will be able to make programs in English or in Russian, but at least when we will be dealing with another portion of newly made myths, we will do in 3 languages.
At least, yeah, we'll try. We can't promise, but we'll try, because this takes a lot of energy.
And my apologies for my accent. I haven't been practicing my English for like 5-6 years.
Thank you for the attention.
Расовые камикадзе мы впереди мир камер газовых, армии Власова, казни массовых, но все